Okay, guys, welcome back to a new video here. So I actually want to talk about President-elect Trump is in France. Comes at an interesting time, guys, as the world seems as if it gets crazier by the moment. He actually visited France, and this is big for a number of reasons. Number one, this is his first visit as president-elect, so it's major for that reason. And it's different in the sense where, yeah, he's president-elect, but he's been president before. So a lot of the people he's meeting with, like President Macron, for example, he knows who he is. They've had relations in the past, and there was a number of world leaders there, and frankly, a lot of news was made, and we're going to talk about that right now. Number one, yeah, he went to France for the opening of the Notre Dame, by the way, guys, which burned down the church in Paris. But I believe it was 2019 or so where it burned down, so Trump was invited for the reopening as president-elect. President Biden was not in attendance, but the First Lady Jill Biden was there, as well as Biden's daughter. And it was actually interesting, guys, where they actually were talking. Joe Biden and Trump seemed very friendly, which was surprising. Trump and Macron met for the first time probably in 4 years since Trump was president, where they had a handshake, very aggressive Trump handshake, as you would expect. The photo went viral. It's in the thumbnail, actually, which was pretty interesting. And again, that's kind of Trump's MO, guys. That's how he handles business. He always goes in with the assertive handshake. That's just who Trump is, guys. But it was actually important for a number of reasons. Number one, for Syria, guys, he was there when all this was happening, meeting with world leaders, where he released a number of statements basically saying, setting U.S. policy by saying, we don't want to get involved. Assad is bad, but we don't want to get involved. And the regime fell when he was there. Super interesting. Number two, and maybe the longer term, bigger deal, is as this was happening, guys, he also was taking a meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine, who was also there, as well as President Macron. It was the three of them meeting. And coming out of the meeting, Trump actually called for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine, which is super important for a number of reasons, trying to end this war immediately. And the number of statements he made regarding this, he basically said on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, where basically immediate ceasefire, Russia was just embarrassed in Syria, which is interesting he said this, guys, because remember, in the past, Trump himself has really not been super critical directly of Putin. Now, Trump said, I believe he said Russia's lost 600,000 or something absurd, the amount of people that were lost in Ukraine, Russian soldiers. It's unclear how many, but that's on the higher end of the estimate. So it's super interesting that he would go public with those numbers. Super embarrassing to the Putin regime. Extremely embarrassing, and it's surprising that he would say that in terms of a relation standpoint, because the Kremlin is no question, the Kremlin is not happy that he released that statement. I can promise you that. He said it's time for Russia to come to the table. They failed badly in Syria, and Ukraine has also lost a lot of people. So he's trying to negotiate an immediate end to this war. We'll see if it happens, guys. But the fact that he's calling for an immediate ceasefire after meeting with Zelensky, and it seems as though Zelensky is willing to give up some land, is super, super interesting, and we'll see what comes of it. Now, as far as the Syrian issue, it's going to be crazy to see how Trump is going to handle the situation in the Israeli sense, for example. Will he allow Netanyahu to go after Iran? Because Iran is naked right now, guys. You have to understand this. With the fall of the Syrian regime, I can promise you this, Netanyahu's going to want to go after that nuclear program. In fact, according to many reports we're seeing today, the Iranians are going to be desperate to have a nuke now. Now that all their proxies are eliminated, the Iranians are going to be trying to build a nuke as quick as possible. And will the Israelis allow that? It remains to be seen, but based on what I'm hearing and based on the number of reports out there, it seems as though Trump might allow the Israelis to go after them. So while Ukraine is going to be the number one story in terms of the foreign policy front in the coming weeks and months, I suspect, the Israeli question and what they do about Iran is right there as well. So again, while we're talking about peace, for example, in the Middle East, will Trump be able to broker some sort of peace? There's still so much conflict, and it's really unclear if he'll be able to stop it. And guys, remember, no U.S. troops are actually fighting in Ukraine, for example. But who knows? We talked about a few weeks ago with Article 5 being considered to be enacted if Russia continues to be aggressive in NATO countries, or if it does any sort of offensive attack. Now, we haven't seen that under the Biden administration, so that's what I'm saying, guys. Anything can change super quickly. It'll be interesting to see how this situation develops over the coming weeks and how the geopolitical ramifications are affected in the first few weeks of his presidency. And like I said, guys, we're already seeing Trump make moves here as president-elect, brokering policy that's very uncommon, but because of his position and the fact that he was president already, kind of, it gives leaders know what they're getting, kind of, in a sense. So that's the big news. President-elect Trump making moves in France, coming out with a number of policy positions or in policy statements in terms of what he wants to happen, specifically on the Syrian front, saying he doesn't want us to be involved, and that's key. And number two, on the Ukrainian front, we want an immediate ceasefire. So trying to de-escalate the situation in these areas. Again, this is rhetoric, though. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? The thing with politicians is they're not always honest publicly. So it remains to be seen what happens. But again, Trump at the Notre Dame in France as his first visit as president-elect. Again, super interesting. And the fact that he chose France was interesting as well. And guys, what's today? We got December 8th. We only got a little over a month before he's becomes a president. So crazy things happening. I will keep you guys updated with the news. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.